At the Battle of Lemberg on September 13th, we witnessed a poignant emblem of German martial ethos. A parched Wehrmacht officer, his lips cracked from the front's furnace thirst, extended his canteen to a weary Polish captive before slaking his own dry throat, a selfless gesture amid the mud-churned melee, where the air hung heavy with cordite's bite and the cries of the fallen echoed like distant thunder, underscoring our innate code of conduct forged in the crucible of honor. How worlds apart from the buccaneering barbarism that the shadowy buccaneer Old England elevated to empire's grim grandeur, her Union Jack stained with the salt of plundered seas and the blood of subjugated shores. Even the bloated boast that honor dwells among felons rings hollow. If any such virtue lingers in larceny's lair, we'd sooner unearth it amid the mist-shrouded bohemian thickets of Schiller's Räuber, where brigands' blades flash with romantic rebellion, or on Corsica's craggy coasts, cradle of that bandit-born liberator Napoleon, rather than in Albion's opulent vaults, whence waft the fetid fumes of a venomous deception, gilded lies that have poisoned the gales for generations. At the fin de siècle's fevered dawn, the Nordic playwright Ibsen, with scalpel-sharp prose honed on Norway's fjord-carved fjords, dissected the frayed fabric of the gentleman's realm and the pernicious life-lie that sustains a soul. How a single mendacity, spun with silken sophistry, can cradle and corrupt a conscience, thriving like ivy on a crumbling facade. In England's Chronicle, this falsehood boasts legs of iron, striding 4 centuries strong, from Drake's dragon-haunted galleons to the Rajah's ruby-red regalia. Ibsen in theatrical thunder unveiled the global guise of rectitude where fair play and gentlemanly veneer must inevitably perish beneath the lie's leper's touch. The British Commonwealth, that grandiloquent gloss over gore, a euphemism's elegant shroud veiling the visceral violence wrought upon Ireland's Emerald Isles, where Cromwell's crows feasted on famine's fields and India's teeming tapestry, unraveled by the East India Company's rapacious reels, leaving ledgers ledgered in locks of lives. Yet Adolf Hitler's Reich, with its unyielding verity and vokish vigor, shall strip these shams bare before the world's unblinking gaze, illuminating the hypocrisy's hollow heart. Fairness, as we Teutons intuit it, is the sinew of the stalwart, the congenital chivalry of the German Geist, its magnanimous might and unfeigned fortitude pulsing like the Rhine's eternal current. The slaughters at Jossingsfjord stand as scrawled scripture on the sepulchre wall, harbingers of the ethical empire's inexorable unraveling. With straining sinews, the so-called gentleman and his vitrine of virtuous veneers, that porcelain puppet he dubs British diplomacy, have clung to credibility since the mendacious maelstrom of propaganda from 1914 to 1918, when, in unholy alliance with the USA's opportunistic Inc., he peddled lurid libels of Germans lopping infants' limbs and stoking macabre corpse conflagrations in Belgium's beleaguered bowels. In East Asia's opium-shadowed enclaves, Jossingsfjord's fresh atrocity unmasked the mask at last. Jossingsfjord emerges as England's engraved epistle, a reprisal's raw rubric portending plutocracy's plunge. We behold the mammon-maddened despotism, barren of breeding or benevolence, battering the blind and broken about its bloated bulk like a behemoth in death throes. As we endured in the Great War's grinding gears of 1914 to 1918, there lingers a courtly cadence, an ethereal elan, in the ether when dueling dogfighters duel o'er northern France's furrowed fields. One veers valiantly aside upon spying his foe's ammunition's arid end, the belt's barren belch betraying his vulnerability, turning tail with a twinge of reluctance to assail the unarmed adversary, a tacit truce born of the blue. We hold these Germanic graces, gallantry's golden thread, endure undimmed in our day, yet fathom that the plutocrat's polluted pits have profoundly perturbed the nocturnal norms of knightly conduct in contemporary England. This epiphany has etched enmity into our elan vital, steeling our strife with a sterner sentiment. Avarice's ancient allure has long lured the isle to disown its Nordic lineage, and it shall not reclaim its kith until we impart a pedagogical pounding. Succinctly, we suss the sort of gentleman we grapple with a slyly sadistic sprite, the term gentleman demoted to a dingy annex in our Deutsch dictionary, whence we evict eternally the haughty holdover, that ethically embalmed embezzler, boot-black to his boot heels. Gentlemen? That's the U-boat's uncanny snare of simulated scruples, the prestidigitator's palimpsest, where liberty transmutes to lucre's lint and Christ cross to cotton's coin. The gentleman has gaslit us grievously, his pomaded patina a perennial ploy. We loaned him our lore of largesse, chivalry, a casual coinage we'd coined carelessly. But the curtain crashed with the unmasking of that colossal rail baron, Toxin Tycoon, and bellicose Baron Neville Chamberlain, one of myriad monstrosities Eton and Oxbridge exalt as their apotheosis. We've unveiled his unctuous unction, alias sanctimonious will. Live and let live, wouldn't that be fairness's fairest flourish, its simplest sower of seeds, to bestow upon the German vote, all egalitarian in essence, the equity they embody? We ruminate on the realms wrap in sans realms. Sans colonies, England's annals would be authored in acrid animosity and asphyxiating spite, envisioning the gentleman we glorify, contrasted to England's emasculated merchant prince. We conjure Houston Stuart Chamberlain versus Neville's namesake, identical nomenclature, antithetical auras. Geist's gale against Gold's grime, the life assurer's ledgered Etonian ensconced neath his bumbershoot versus the Titan's temerarious ticker. Fairness and the vaunted gentlemanliness aren't clannish conundrums for us. No need for tales and tie to toast at a Tony table. To us, they're visceral verities, visceral voyages coursing the crimson of multitudes. If I've coal in my coal hole, I'd share a scuttle with a super in the snip shop. Quote the fellow Fritz in the frostbitten fray of those fuel-famished Februaries. Fairness and forbearances, firebrands blaze in our blood's bold beat. Is there another chevalier's code that conjures such selfless surges, such sovereign sacrifices? The gentleman gathers a grim gloss, his galleon grounded, guilt gone to dross. No locution limns the duplicity of gentlemen, like the famed fusion gentleman thief, varnish o'er vice. Tails and top hats, tea-time twaddle, and tweed-clad treachery that we've tolerated too long to tolerate longer, cannot cloak the consummate conman of the cloak and dagger corps, slithering through society's slenderest slits. Hence, and for hosts of kindred kicks, we vow a veto eternal on this vintage vermin gentleman, the frock-coated flaneur of fin de siècle finance's foxtrot, the gentlemanly paragon paired to gent, that narcissistic dandy devoid of doctrine, bereft of a bona fide Bildungsideal to buttress his bluster. The Neue Germany's noble nucleus impresses, Kultur's keel forms finesse, honor's helm, beneficence's bloom, nobility's nectar, from the middle altar's mini-sang, chivalry and chivalrous cradle this constellation. Amidst our soldiery, the nocturnal noblesse endures, unbroken to now. Lately, we legionaries in the West wage a war of words with the British's weasel-word gentleman. High time to hurl this historically heinous hoax to the historiographical heap. We'll afford these globe-trotting gas-bags, these sanctimonious swells swollen with avarice and airs, a grace to perish with panache, gentlemen, so to speak. May 10th. What a date dawns in front, grateful victor's vanguard, elated to embroil the English arch-foe after war's weary intermission he craved. We ken that with every stride into this alien yet akin acreage. The Reich's radiance redoubles. What prodigious providence for we who partake in the pre-dawn pomp. Morn's matin hours marshal our vanguard. Infantry's ironclad cohorts and pioneers, ponton pioneers poling stormboats across the Dutch domain's dappled drains and drowsy ditches. Our panzers, panzerfausts, steel scalpels slicing the soft underbelly of the foe, forge frontward. Our aerial armadas avalanche o'er adversarial airspace like rumbling Ragnarok, thunderheads of tonnages. We ride this day against England. A singular symphony swells in the May midnight. The silvery clatter and clump of myriad hooves hammering the hardpan are hymn of highway and paean of prowess. Motors murmur a martial undertone to our marching masses metronome. Victorious vibrations vibrate. Stealthily, our squadrons snake into Lage, nigh the Netherlands' nebulous nonce, proximate Coevordens cloister crossroads. At 3 a.m., Dawn's dove gray diffuses the diamond-clear demarcation, squadron stalling, man mount, machine etched ebon against Aurora's amber, a tableau of transcendental tenacity. Perchance our palpitation for the paramount pulse renders all so sublimely surreal. We throbbed likewise on September 1st, 1939's nocturnal nebula, ere our foot soldiers stormed Jablonka's jagged jaws, the breach of belligerent Deutschland's Braunbergen's boulder in this instant. Now, Kameraden, to your chargers. Your chargers to the champagne drawn to liberty. An antique Nacklied's numinous nostrum and consecration, drawn to liberty elicits our exultant exhalation. We envision no peril lurking in the half-hued border boscages. Gaze gallant, cogitate cavalier, canter courageous. The divisional director doles this dictum to our dragoons in his Tage Beffel. We what will waft the vaunted Weltkriegs Wehrmacht Reiterfahren line. The cavalry's crusading Geist endures in our turreted Titans, in our Jagdfliegers. Jetstream. The Schwert of the Teutonic Luftstrike McShears, skyward stark, as the Uhlans ululating Ulna for Muir. We halt in a huddle of homesteads, scant kilometers shy of the schism. The Schwadronfer declaims the Kriegsarticle. The mounted Aufklärer array, equines etching impatience with etched escarpments. East Prussen's pommels preen from Polish playa. Men's murmurs meld. Spurs' silver song salutes the solstice. Scarlet standards salute the sunrise. Breakthrough's brink, demise's doorstep, destiny's due. Fanfares fluttering fantasia. War's inaugural intermezzo, a symphonic surge of stirring. Splendor. The Kriegsberichter must meld with the melee. Airborne Reiterführer. Implore an equine? Ja, scribe, our scribbler. You're horseless? Bide a beat. Woe a war horse for him, Feldwebel. He hollers, the Unteroffizier hustles hither. Rig this riderless rogue own. The sergeant scours the schwadron, with that he waylay a Waleed nag, nay. Then adieu to Aurora's antics. I'd forfeit the foray, comrade. The scribbler's saga would skew sidelong and spasmodic astride his ambling ambler, or dwindle to dives into sodden saps. Erelong. St. George's saintly simulacrum materializes, mirthful, manning the reins of a formidable, fearless, forbearing raven-black rap, Renata. We vault aboard Renata, we velvet her velvet, we vow vigilant vigil, we wheedle Renata into her perked ear. Saccharine as sucrose, the fledgling equestrian enamored at first flush, equine's SB emotion's essence, and we enact accordingly. Yet Renata registers naught, remains recalcitrant. She spies not the saddle-shy scholar, with a score of shaky seat hours astern aflutter atop her, or she suave enough to slight the slight that Renata the mare has manifested. What follows? Reiteraufklärungsrubrik. Selfsame Reiteraufklärung. Herr Reiterführer. Entreat to embed with the Aufklärer? Fine by me. Rendezvous the Reiterführer. Herr Oberleutnant Graf G. Herr Oberleutnant. Implore to ingress your Aufklärer? Smirk scatter, round. Worse than a hind kick in the hindquarters. Nix against you, but ingress our ingress? Nay, mein Lieber, nix that notion post-haste. I've the onus of obits irrespective. If you tumble from your tacker, tallying's torment. Reiteraufklärung's no pony prance in a Volksfest paddock. Nay, nay, perhaps Lieutenant R recruits you? Lieutenant R. Entreat to escort your Aufklärer? Absolutely nix. I've the onus of obits irrespective. If you tumble from your tacker, etc. Nay, nay, blitzed off our beak dangles a horse's haunch. Primer's primer peels. Duo Schwadron and surge to seize the Schismstad Coevorden. Corps to commandeer the Vex Viaduct. 0625's Oracle. Cannonades cantata crescendos. Our liked Feldhobbit's litany links the litany. Bomber Jeschwader's grumbles o'erhead, bound westward. IMG's metronomic menace modulates the matin's motif, harbinger of hardships him. Morn's maiden mesmerizes the mead. The May meadows misted with dewdrops diamond diadems. Soul's shafts transmute the low-lying fog's flat fane into undulant aureate oceans. Magnificent mastiffs of the meadow, draft destriers, bound across the brows, neighing to their russet rearmost war whelps. Yonder, a Rei Turkalon, crest the cusp, a me. 109 meanders o'er our midst, a cavalcade on clay and in the cerulean. Ere we espy, we've evaded the entanglement's embrace. The Vecht viaduct vibrates neath the schwadron stomp. We wink at the first Nederlander notices. Clog-shod skippers gape-mouthed at their thresholds, roused from repose, pardon, roused rudely. Holland. We're sinned in Holland, kameraden, kennst du's? Ist das Soldatengluck oderwiz? Jetter trait unst naher and Tommy. Kanonen, kinnekieren, aufklarer, ascendi avant. We're auk. Renata und ich kann die Truppen nicht begleiten. We're wallen the vex verge unvexed, we woo Dutch dawdlers, dreaming wide-eyed. A bower boosts his hand in the Heilsgruss. Sensing the zephyr only a writer relishes, we trundle in the matin's mist, permitting the picturesque panorama to possess us. Scant souls stir in the Sabbath's serenity. Though 'tis Freitag. Renata rears restive. I can scarce restrain her. The battalions van 500 meters a vanguard. Renata relishes no repose, nay, she rebels, reasserts her reign. I cannot coerce her circuit. Renata's cajolery avails naught. Tier, verflux tier. Wan walls do Danenreiter? We're sinned in Fainsland. Ein halbe stunned in Fainsland, denk dran. Renata, hoppida, hoppida, hoppida. I incite Renata to Renatan gallop. I vow I'll vanquish your vice, and seek per bindings reiterlier for a liebling to lasso your seemingly suggestible seal. But you've none, hers loses Rosby, du stornder Gall. Fulter druck, means Schenkelsdijk nicht? Du zoekst, doch ich bin kein Gelassenheit selbst. Die Baume der Gasfliegen vorbei wie in eine Wild West Film. Halt, halt. Oh la la, schau, SIE haben ein Geschenk für UNS. SIE lauten ein Glock für UNS. Hinten vorn Erblicken were die Reitertruppen, aber Lieutenant Graf G. Oh, when UNS nur bemerkt. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Der erste Feinführer Reist durch die Rehender Cavalry. Die Ross Reisenhirem, die Galoppieren nach Deckgung hintergehofen. Renata Schnott. SIE hat schon Deckgung genommen. Renata Zeit, das SEI Geberins Patriumfordist. Das sich nicht verwirrt durch tiermenschliche Interaction. Renata repräsentiert den reichen traditionellen Gesang, ein berühmt Waff, die trotz allem jung Gebliebenist. Eagle was der Motor zu sagen hat. So indeed unser erster Tag der Reitens gegen England. Fredericksort on the march to the coast, May 11th, 10 a.m. During the hasty march through North Holland, our cavalry granted a small pause this morning. In one day and one night we covered 120 kilometers, an extraordinary achievement. Today another 90 kilometers await us. We breathe through for the exertion ahead and commemorate our stormy yesterday. The land before us is not favorable to the cavalry. The many West Frisian canals, lying closely side by side, leave riders little room to deploy for a comprehensive flank attack. Worse are the many blown-up bridges, which make the terrain even more difficult to cross. Again and again bridges explode in front of us. After the enemy demolition squads let us approach to within 100 meters in a canal. A dozen times we have seen blast clouds growing like night black pines on the horizon. Of course, our bold troops have seized bridgeheads in close combat and facilitated our advance. In Hugeveen, they came too late. Yesterday evening, as we marched along the canal, we saw that the house fronts showed heavy damage from uncontrolled explosions. Dutch citizens have felt the worst effects of the war through the zeal of their own demolition squads. The enemy has not defended the bunkers. In Hugeveen, we noticed that the fortifications in this town were completely neglected. The Dutchman shoots well, gentlemen, better than the Pole, said the regimental commander to his officers. He is right. We have personal experiences from yesterday in Coevorden. The Dutchman has always fought bravely in wars. For Dutch students significantly delayed 2 of our squadrons in Coevorden, until our mortars forced them to capitulate. We respect combat spirit. We regret the Dutch, as they blindly damage their own property. The enemy has sown considerable mistrust with his propaganda. The fearful people in the cities stay in their rooms and neglect their field work. They fear that the Germans might set their houses on fire. In contrast, we rejoice in cases where people receive us warmly and sympathetically. Our hostess offered us strong coffee hospitably and invited us to the table with friendly words. Today, we make the long leap to the coast. We do not know what deterrence the enemy has prepared for us. We do not know where he is hiding. Our squadrons have advanced deep into the land without enemy contact. We worry about what we will encounter. We open the picture books of our childhood. They show picturesque Holland, windmills, sunny alleys, inviting broad-windowed houses, clattering wooden shoes, the swinging white caps of the girls. To see the land before astonished eyes, a unique land, fulfills a youthful dream. We feel terrible imagining that everything belongs to the enemy. These people have almost the same language as we do. Should they be our enemies? No, and again no. The feeling that we are actually on our own German soil lives powerfully in us. The population, which stared at us shyly and coldly today, is like us. Their art of war, bold and effective, matches ours. Their character is like ours. That is the tragedy that envelopes Holland like shadows of heavy clouds. We must be another enemy if we are so similar. Have Germanic peoples not always stood in conflict? Hildebrand and Hagebrand between two armies sings an old saga of a duel between close blood relatives. Yesterday we buried 2 of our cavalry in West Frisian soil, near their blood brothers from the other army. 2 comrades, who sat in the saddle with us yesterday, remain silently behind. We ache, but we cannot hate. We think ahead. We ride against England. The advanced cavalry group will be reinforced with fast-moving heavy weapons. Most men ride through Frederiksort. What may the day bring? Victory and advance are our motto words. During the Advancelen, May 11th, 6 p.m., our long leap is successful. This afternoon our cavalry reached the Dutch North Sea coast, a breathtaking marching performance. Riders and horses reached the distant goal. Today we covered 90 to 100 kilometers. Only someone who has once sat in the saddle can measure the glory of the deed. A bold intention has become reality. Our riders saw the setting sun from the North Sea coast. We had a lucky day, which began calmly. At 6:30 a.m. we rode with new strength through Frederiksort, Nordwalder to the broad highway, which leads from Meppel to Leeuwarden. An invigorating ride in the morning coolness led us through lush meadowlands, on which splendid cattle grazed. We hardly noticed the exertions of the previous day in our horses. Our leaders mainly wanted us to secure our march route, to prevent enemy demolitions. Their conference took place in a café in Haringvliet. The billiard table became the map. Table, the officers who received their orders remained standing. In a few minutes our position and the actions to be carried out were clear. The regimental commander ordered the formation of a motorized vanguard group. The motorized parts of the division were detached and sent ahead with a special task. Most of our troops must reach Sneek and Bolsward today. The horses shall be ridden to the limit of their endurance. It must be. The commander measured the marching distance with concern. Buses shall bring the cavalry quickly to the coast. Our armored reconnaissance troops will be sent in the direction of Akram. We must take the canals and locks into our hands, which our opponents could use for defense. In the shortest time, they could flood a broad Polderland and Zwolle to Steenwijk. We were also tasked to seize all shipping. A messenger reports to the commander. Armored reconnaissance troop encountered enemy on Akram exit road. 2 enemy buses destroyed. We immediately send heavy motorized weapons at highest speed over the Clinker Highway in the direction of Akram, left of Leeuwarden. The inhabitants of Akram are excited and stunned. They seem not to understand what is happening. 10 kilometers north we press on 2 damaged buses, which stand diagonally on the road. The leader of the armored reconnaissance troops, Sergeant Major R., who received the Iron Cross First Class in Poland, reports what happened. At noon we left Wien. Some Dutch there asked us if we were really English soldiers. Their astonishment about our appearance was unbelievable. We thundered along the highway to Akram. Suddenly we saw the light of tourist buses flashing in front of us. We approached to 50 meters. We recognized Dutch soldiers. They sprinted out of the buses and sought cover from our machine gun fire in ditches on both sides of the road. Our 3 armored reconnaissance vehicles thundered at highest speed toward the buses. One of our vehicles could not brake and crashed into the first bus. The bus driver clung to the steering wheel and tried to stop us by blocking the road diagonally with his bus. We ran down the driver. We killed 10 Dutch soldiers and wounded many more, the other. Buses thundered away. We immediately drove to the Akram exit road. To secure the bridges, suddenly 2 shots from a howitzer anti-aircraft. We withdrew, tried to smoke what we were doing. The brave citizens of Akram misunderstood when we quickly smoked the streets behind us. The people fled screaming into their houses. Gas. We got the buses. They still drove. We captured this booty while advancing our cavalry. We found an enemy paybook in one bus. The Leeuwarden garrison paid 12 Dutch guilders for the vain attempt to stop our advance. Gust on the Zuiderzee highway, May 12, 1 a.m. At midnight we can sit down calmly. We gather our thoughts and ideas, reflect a little. After a day of fighting, I need a quiet room. I want to eat. Say to the honorable wife of the butcher J. Van Boer. We do not forget the usual polite address in the Dutch language. Please, gracious madam. She hesitates, eyes us scrutinizingly, and leads us upstairs to the attic. She opens a door. 3 small children lie in the room, thickly packed in their small bed. A second door opens, showing us the same picture, only with 4 children. Third door. Again a basket full of small children. In the corridor we see half-grown children, all sleeping a blessed children's sleep. Okay, we want to set the typewriter on a suitcase and type quietly, so as not to disturb anyone. No need, for pairs of children's eyes stare at the foreign uncle soldier. Redness of sleep in the faces. None of these hardy creatures starts to cry. We understand each other at first glance. They whisper. While I type, I pause a minute to look out the window. Beyond the street, a few meters from a house door, I stare over the Zuiderzee. The starry sky flickers over the water. I hear the rush of the waves from the gentle surf. The abruptly awakened children fall asleep again. I can continue typing. We hear the radio news at midnight. After 3 days, we learn what is happening in the rest of the world. Our lightning-fast advance to the coast through Sneek leads us to the enemy fortress Cornvorden, and a few kilometers away, we can hardly catch our breath. Days later, the motorized units of our cavalry division march, after reconnaissance with our tanks, from Havelt near Meppel, Drenthe province. We drive through Noordwald. Here in Veen, Akram, Ern, Sneek, Bolsward to the immediate vicinity of the village Muckum on the IJsselmeer, Zuiderzee. At 12:10 p.m., 2 special commands roll through Woekum in 2 captured buses, which arrive on the Zuiderzee highway. After Muckum, it is impossible, destroyed by our opponents, says Captain Saint, leader of a naval unit. Both special command leaders are in Bolsward. By evening, you must turn south and take another road to Muckum. We can seize all ships immediately in Muckum and Pyram. We jump up and rattle to Workum, 60 men strong, armed with carbines and machine guns. We sit packed in the 2 captured tourist buses. Far from Akram, as night falls, we are in cheerful mood. For the first time we sniff the North Sea air. Bizarre cloud monsters, typical here, sail low on the horizon. The setting sun glows through water and clouds with golden rays, a remarkable fantasy creation. For a moment we forget that we are carrying out a war matter. Perhaps the softly padded travel bus far away does the work. According to the map, we must turn right to Muckum. The road is furrowed with 7 deep ditches. This section is impossible. We motor further south and stop briefly in the town Parega. We have had no proper meal today. We buy black bread and sliced beef tongue. That will hold us. Packed mobs are stunned. Onlookers stare at the WWII, who eat their simple meal on the street. We drive on. Our armored reconnaissance cars have moved away. We reach the entrance to Workum. Men approach us suspiciously. Dutch police, we think. We jump forward to disarm them. Man, we had bad luck today, says our weapons brother, who belongs to a naval commando unit, after we recognize him at the last moment. The Navy has occupied this place a few hours ago. Civilians, a man, a woman, 2 girls, hairless, a girl hands us an issue of the Berliner Illustraten. On the title page, a Führer portrait. Heil Hitler, they call repeatedly. The man points to the roof of his house. He says he has gotten himself into trouble. We see NSB, the sign of the Dutch Nazi movement, on the tiles. The brave man offers us his help gladly. We speak with him. You cannot go this way, he says. On the marketplace of Workham, we meet other naval commandos. Forward, we must use the last glimmer of daylight. At 9:15 p.m. we are on the road protected. We steer toward Gost and run into returning armored reconnaissance cars. The enemy holds Muckham powerfully. We drove to within 600 meters of the town. Suddenly we heard the howl of a fire alarm. We could clearly see the bunkers. One had at least 6 riflemen. We had to withdraw. Tonight we had to be content with 60 men as guests in the town Gost. We sneaked along the street and got our first glimpse of the ocean. Nameless joy filled us in this moment. The lead gray Zuiderzee lay before us in the blue twilight. The starry night broke through. We could make out the converters and locks and the church towers of Muckham. The cool sea air blew over us and took the shine from our cheeks. The commander immediately cut the telephone lines to prevent espionage. We throw a last glance at the sea, which has enchanted us. We rightly understand the passage of the Greek historian Xenophon, his famous thalassa, the sea, the sea. The Greek soldiers call these words after marching through Asia Minor, when they catch the first glimpse of the open water. Millennia ago, the same soldierly experience as ours. We hear the muffled thunder of a shot from a tube at Fort Cornvorden, perhaps a warning shot. A second follows, then a third. We see the silhouette of a formidable steamer emerge. It comes toward us from the direction of Inquisen. At this distance, we cannot make out many details. The ship crosses back and forth at the same spot, probably a mine lair. We post guards. We can enjoy some peace and quiet. We stay in the house of the butcher Van Boer. The fireplace relaxes us. We are treated as guests and supplied with strong tea. The coastal gun thunders from the fort. I break off eating my ham when the shell strikes the street. Oberleutnant Graf G. says dryly, "It is hard to scare cavalry." We lie down on the smooth floor. Reconnaissance troops for morning directions. Downstairs in the kitchen, the village elders sit and consult whispering. Restless. A searchlight beam like from a lighthouse moves over the Zuiderzee in the fearful night. Gost, east coast of the Zuiderzee, May 12, 3 p.m. An advance to the Zuiderzee dike was not possible. The enemy had erected a deeply staggered defense position in front of Muckham. Our task for this morning is to count the bunkers and estimate the enemy's strength. Our riders have left their horses far behind. They must use bicycles. The villagers in Gost lend us their theater willingly. That is bicycles, which are available here in abundance. We roll off at 7:30 a.m. We carry 3 machine guns and some hand grenades. We head out on the road along the canal to Pyram. After 2 kilometers of driving, we encounter a bridge that was set on fire recently. We must extinguish it. We fetch buckets from the nearest farmhouse and put out the fire. Then we drive on the road to identify enemy positions with the naked eye. We discover 6 earth bunkers, camouflaged with grass and sod. With our binoculars, we see that the crews move freely in front of their fortresses, under the protection that the west side of the road provides. We approach Muckham. Our opponent notices us. Some shots crack. It is 8:30 a.m. Dutch aircraft circle over the enemy fortresses at Cornvorden and fly over us. As they withdraw, we must take cover from the aircraft. Our task fulfilled, we can turn around and return. We notice on the way home that the water level in the canals has noticeably risen since last night. The meadows are partially flooded, the water and the dikes, whose opening we have hindered. With our broad advance are the partners of our opponents. Their allies will understandably use the floods. The villagers leave Gost with sack and pack. Their departure is not necessary. At 2:30 p.m. our opponent in Muckham was under pressure through our successful thrust to Pingjum, Cornvorden, hunted by our bicycle division. He has now cleared out and fled with motorboats across the Zuiderzee to the converters and fortresses. We took 100 prisoners in Muckham, who could no longer reach the buses, which we captured together with machine guns and ample ammunition. May 8 a.m. Yesterday morning we reached the fortress belt with our reconnaissance troops, which stretches in an arc from Muckham to Harlingen. We would never have believed that this carefully constructed enemy position would no longer exist tonight. The facility was threefold: 3 deep echelons of fortresses, expressions of the enemy's will to resist. Front troops defended the entrance at the Zuiderzee dike. The access road was blocked with thick barbed wire barriers, concrete pillars, and tank obstacles. We recognized that the enemy designed corner as the key position. Air attacks by our squadron Schumacher carried the enemy away. Air bombardments blew up his transport columns on the road and threatened to cut off the supply of the fortress belt. Our bicycle units carried out frontal attacks on the bunker lines at Whitmarsum, Pingjum, Schrard, Longahu, and Muckham. By opening the dikes, the enemy flooded broad stretches of his territory. The water ditches and canals made our advance difficult in this most impossible land of Europe. We found numerous bridges burning. Nevertheless, our troops moved surprisingly quickly past the obstacles. Such a deed was only possible with bold men. Occasionally, they waded waist-deep through shallow pools, brought themselves in rubber boats under enemy fire to safety, and positioned their howitzers. With one well-aimed shot after another, they took out 50 earth bunkers. The high-precision howitzers had a paralyzing effect on the enemy, who, after a hit, usually hoisted a white flag. Our combat units put the enemy in headless flight to the Zuiderzee roads, where they jumped into waiting motorboats and escaped to Cornvorden. An overloaded boat capsized in the rough sea. An enemy non-commissioned officer swam to shore, where we captured him. Meanwhile, defending the road with our howitzers. At 9:10 p.m., the motorized artillery of our cavalry division reached Muckham. We had overcome countless obstacles, barbed wire and water barriers. We unified our front along the road from Workum to the Zuiderzee, through Muckham and Harlingen, the North Sea port of North Holland. The way to the Zuiderzee locks fell into our hands. Storm troops of the bicycle division broke the resistance on the road. From the outset, we proceeded to embed artillery and howitzers along the road. We could then defend the dikes against attacks by our opponent. In Muckham, we received the report of the death of a comrade, a photographer. He died a soldier's death during the attack on the fortress belt at Pingjum. Witnesses told us he stood upright as they saw him last, and apparently had aimed his camera at the storming troops when a bullet hit him. We will now describe the preparations for the attack on the fortified Cornvorden Canal and with heavy weapons. Harbor Stavern, Zuiderzee, May 14th, 5 p.m. In connection with the Navy, our cavalry has taken over the defense of the east coast of the Zuiderzee. Muckham, Hindelupen, Tavern, Lemma from the sea. The enemy seeks to destroy our defense facilities. Our artillery is set up. An enemy torpedo boat surprises us immediately in the harbor Stavern and fires from 3 tubes at a distance of 1,000 meters. He destroys only one of our guns. 3 artillerymen die soldiers' deaths. We bury them in the dike near our guns, whose tubes continue to spit fire over the Zuiderzee. We plant the national flower, the tulip, on the 3 graves. Full of silent pain, we stand before the fresh graves. The surf roars. Bright clouds glide over us and whisper of eternal life with their beating wings. In his funeral speech, the battery chief mentions what we have gone through. He speaks of the necessity of death as a sacrifice at Germany's behest. He praises our 3 fallen comrades, true remembrance, and the gratitude of the German fatherland. New Stukas punish the enemy warships for our shed blood. We watch as our aircraft dive down on the ships from the cover of low clouds. Rising smoke clouds indicate the success of the bombing attack. The enemy has sunk a wheat freighter to block the harbor entrance to Stavern. Our pioneer demolition troops clear the obstacle. Suspicious enemy ships cross between Mendelik and Stavern, probably mine layers. At night, 10 enemy searchlights are at play over the Zuiderzee. Through air reconnaissance, we locate 3 more gunboats in the Zuiderzee. May 10:15 p.m. Cornvorden is a strongly built concrete fortress work on a narrow spit of land. It stands perpendicular on the Zuiderzee dike and is one of the entrance gates to Holland since ancient times. It has served as a natural fortress, previously invincible. We look at Cornvorden from the road on the east coast of the Zuiderzee through binoculars. We see narrow casemates. The massive concrete blocks are hard to recognize because of their protective coatings. Our observation aircraft circled tirelessly over the fortress. Despite the heavy defensive fire of our opponents, our aircraft dive low to photograph the targets for our impending attack. A heavy, deep cloud bank pulls from the North Sea over the road and quickly darkens the view of our flyers on enemy flak. On the highway, the sky is foggy dark, pouring rain. Next to us stands a tank soldier, who is assigned to our unit leader for gas detection and reporting. We lie near the dike bridgehead north of Cornwood. Our storm. Troops found some mustard gas at the bridgehead. Some canisters labeled mustard gas. Our gas warning was repeated in Zurich, which we reached after bypassing the flooded areas. Zurich, a small village on the north side, is an isolated outpost. Bunker upon bunker, earth fortresses, camouflaged as harmless manure piles, emerge. Upon closer inspection, we see barbed wire, water ditches, canals, and flooded meadows. An infantry attack would be a bold venture. Nevertheless, our cyclists managed it. Yesterday, a pioneer division has arrived on the highway, which leads to Harlingen. They are to blow up the extensive concrete obstacles and clear the way for motorized heavy flat-fire guns. In 35 minutes they begin. We hurry to the road, look toward Cornvorden. Barbed wire and numerous bunkers cross the road diagonally in a depth of 4 to 5 kilometers. The North Sea lies before us, the Wadden Sea, covered with countless islands since the time of the flood. We ride to the bridgehead. The droning of explosions and rising smoke clouds behind us announce that the concrete obstacles on the road to Zurich have been cleared. We greet assault troops who prepare for their mission. They place their knapsacks on the bicycle saddles and hand grenades in the shafts of their boots. Both sides of the road of the shelled bridgehead show preparation traces. Artillery is set up, ready to fire. The Swedish road and the North Sea provide cover. 6:35 p.m. 3 assault troops of a bicycle unit, reinforced by pioneers, reach the starting point. Our heavy artillery fires on the bridgehead. Other troops withdraw to firing positions. The bus is abandoned by the fleeing Dutch waiters who seek cover. Every soldier is overjoyed to experience the speed and precision of our artillerymen, splendid fellows and their heavy weapons. Through scissors binoculars placed on our observation post, we observe the distant fortresses, ready to fire. Our observation aircraft circles over the road. He is to determine if the enemy withdraws after the bombardment. The task for each. 1. Determine if the enemy defends. 2. Ascertain the strength of his defense, and if he uses artillery. 3. Neutralize the mine barriers with gunfire, storm the bunkers. The width of the strip to be cleared is certainly unfavorable. On the 40 to 50 meter wide highway, the drivable road is 20 meters wide. There is no chance of meaningful cover. Only the 4-kilometer long asphalt road before us, which leads to Cornvorden. The defenders are well protected on this road. They can direct machine gun flanking fire to both sides and rake the possible section with artillery fire. 6:45 p.m. Our shooting has begun. Our shells whistle to their target, too short, too wide. Then a hit. Smoke rises in a black cloud. Armor-piercing shells load, commands. The artillery commander. Fire strongly. Nothing moves in the enemy bunkers. No shot is returned. After correction, the commander races back from our observation post, hidden. With everything you've got, again our shots find their target. The thundering cannonade swells and finally drowns out the loudly roaring North Sea surf. Our artillery fires from all tubes. The targets disappear for minutes in smoke. For more than an hour, the thunder of the batteries rolls over road and sea. Night falls with a blue-green haze, inflamed by the bright green muzzle flash of the guns. Assault troops on bicycles push silently along the road to Cornvorden. We advance 2 kilometers. The enemy begins to sparkle, as if just awakened from a shock. His shots land close in front of us. We race to the roadside, flatten a ditch. A group seeks cover on the other side, but flanking fire drives them back. The first wounded are hastily brought out on motorcycles. The air is thick on this damned road. We line the ditch in a long row, then forward again. March, march. Our bold assault troops work their way to 500 meters to the tank obstacles, untouched by the raging defensive fire. Cannon shots hiss into the asphalt. It shames us to lie flat on the road like North Sea flounders. The artillery commander and his adjutant are seriously wounded. Motorcycles bring them back. Slowly our assault troops disengage from the enemy. Our powerful clearing has fulfilled our task. 9 p.m. night breaks in. Considering the result, our losses are low. Our assault troops attacked without cover. They outstandingly bold. They strode along the empty road, staring coldly at the fiery enemy tubes. The bold deeds of our bicycle battalion will remain in memory. In Starvern Harbor, May 15th, 12:25 a.m., on board the WR. That sounds fantastic. As we examine the boat more closely, our fantasy of an elegant ship on which we can live comfortably flutters away. The WR is actually no luxury yacht, God forbid. WR is no warship, no destroyer, no gunboat, yet it is also no entirely peaceful ship. WR is the abbreviation for Workham, a fishing village on the Zuiderzee. WR weighs no more than 15 GRT, a modest fishing boat. Behind us, in the harbor of Starver, and 9 similar boats, which appeared on May 11th. Operation Stein chartered them. We sit and write in the narrow forepeak of the command boat Max. The fleeing ships were captured and chained. After days of difficult preparation, the engines are brought to shipping form and all required vehicles brought to the canal. Yesterday, our pioneers blew up an obstacle for entry into the harbor, a sunken freighter. The Dutch seamen resist passively. They do not believe that the Dueter will return there. Chartered flotilla. The fleet is ready to start. The guns of our artillery and our cannon are loaded onto the cutter. As the sun sets, we position the cannon in the stern, ready to fire. While protected behind sandbags, other guns are aimed in the direction of travel of the ship. We are safe from surprises. The Stuka have cleared enemy gunboats from the Zuiderzee. This afternoon, the gunboats are no longer a danger. We only need to worry about coastal artillery and mines. Seaman Mecklenburg and Machinist Nordheim insist that we will meet Tommy out there. I want to give him one on the lid, says the seaman. That is my only wish. We wait for a meeting with the commander. Will we go to sea or not? The question lies on our lips and in our hearts. In spirit, we are already 3 days in Old Holland on the opposite coast of the Zuiderzee. Toward evening, our Stukas fly to Cornvorden Fortress. The visibility for the aircraft is poor. They dive down and drop there. Bombs on the Woden Sea. We could arrive at the distant coast by sea sooner than our comrades by road. Wonderful moonlight floods the harbor of Tavern. We have left the forepeak of our cutter to take a harbor walk. It was too hot inside. The oil lamps spread warmth. The bottles of Dutch gin, which pass from mouth to mouth, contribute their part to raising my body temperature. Our flotilla looks adventurous. One must admit, bold like a free corps flotilla of the 17th century. The adventure before us makes our blood tingle. We galloped from Coevorden to North Holland on the back of a horse. A motor carried us further. We had to jump on a bicycle to fulfill reconnaissance troop duties. Now we have become seafarers, even for a much-written cavalryman, a wild career from day to day. Our brave East Prussian knight would never have dreamed that he would exchange the reins of his horse for an anchor line. In groups the men stand near the cutters and speak of joyful excitement, which our unusual mission may offer. Come what may, for these writers a remark of a World War cavalry rider is fitting. It was the miracle of German cavalry, that war and danger were heavenly joy, armistice of excitation. A special report is said to have said that the Dutch have capitulated. Can it be true? Somewhere on the pier riders and seamen sing together. Then we travel over the IJsselmeer. We are in fantastic mood, really. We are quartered in the village Mulkersum. A few hours ago the window panes rattled under the pressure of distant bombardments. Nothing can stop us. Forward to the enemy. No minefields will hinder us. The speech of our camp is the subject of dry jokes. Sailors with sail ears joke. One should announce oneself when they gather. The sailors are doomed to die. Should go behind the box to receive the coffin. Later in the forepeak, machinist Horst Nordheim explains without a trace of pathos. We make nothing of dying. You can send us wherever you want. We volunteered here. Operation Stein is a bit of a heavenly command, he explains in low German. Salem Mecklenburg adds, we have been in bush war for half a year. We want to do our part, so that we win. Sailors call infantry service bush war. We let ourselves be dragged. No, Willem, we did not let ourselves be hair-cut or shaved. We leave the sauerkraut standing until we are in England, says machinist Horst. Belgians do that, says Willem, the old merchant seaman. They know me in every harbor like a spotted dog from Antwerp to Dunkirk. Yes, Horst, that was a fantastic ride through Groningen. Leeuwarden to Muckham. Do you know what in Bolsward? They took us for English seamen. Are you English? Asked the stunned Dutch. Yes, I answered with cold snout, and I said all right, the only English word I know, adds host. If you could have seen the long faces when I finally said, we are Germans, a little fellow nearby burst out. You don't look so bad. We hear steps in the forepeak. Attention, the leader of the vanguard troop Max enters. At 4 a.m., the engines spring to life. We go at the same time. Understand, be sensible, boys. Leave the beer standing. Hurrah, we go, children. No more Dutch gin, perhaps a small sip to celebrate the day. Who can sleep? It is 2 a.m. We hear steps and a discussion on the pier. Damn and thrice damn, it is hard to understand. Lieutenant, our calls through the door. Holiday evening for you folks, you can go to bed. We stare at the door. Yes, you can sleep. The war is over for today. Holland has capitulated. Our Viking voyage over the Zuiderzee has come to nothing. We will sail the sea peacefully. Our sailor boys are not happy. Willem gurgles. Horst with breaking voice. I send a postcard home. Willem, we can shave ourselves. The young machinist Nordheim, a gloomy Gus, hovers in the corner. Willem holds both hands in front of his face. We can hear the lapping of the waves through the hull. The forepeak is quiet. The lamp crackles occasionally. A heavy sigh. Willem, I say finally, we have it better. Let us rejoice in what has happened. At this moment I can understand why seaman's blood and soldier blood would foam, but we have our task before us. Willem, I add consolingly, try to stiffen the slumped sailor backs. We ride against England. Head up, old boy. At 4 a.m. sleep forces us into our bunks. We slumber until morning, which brings the capitulation of the Cornvorden Fortress and an open road into the Fortress Holland. Cornvorden and on the dike, May 15th, 5 p.m. Yesterday evening our bicycle unit prepared for the attack. We would begin after Stuka's softening of Cornvorden. We had no idea that 12 hours later the fortress would give up all resistance, a result of powerful German weapons at other parts of the front. We had resolved to break the strongest resistance. Without underestimating our experience with our powerful clearing, we were ready to deploy assault troops, 125 men, a pioneer group, a gas detection group, a smoke troop, a demolition troop, and so on. 3 more assault troop battalions were ready to support us. Our Stukas hit the heights of the fortress repeatedly. At 5 p.m. we heard droning and booming, the sounds of the first attack, then silence. In the meantime, negotiations began over the capitulation of the Dutch army. We suspected nothing, as we lay waiting for the attack. The road, May 14th, 7 p.m. An order reached us. The attack is postponed. All forces shall withdraw. We thought Groupement would cross the Zuiderzee. In the morning of May 15th we drive with a pioneer troop parliamentarily along the east road of the Zuiderzee to Cornvorden. At 10 p.m. we have the first negotiations between our division staff and the Dutch Admiralty and Army. This morning, for 07 a.m., the talks begin. The dike fortress Cornvorden has capitulated. Military engineers, as they are called here, come to us and explain how the agreement will be helpful. An alternative road soon replaces the blown-up swing bridge over the dike. While driving over our position we see, where we lay yesterday, under enemy cannon fire. In the flat ditch, right of the highway. Right and left of us were minefields under the grass. Diagonally placed buses, half flooded by the Zuiderzee surf, were to hinder approaching motorboats. We stand before the largest tank obstacle. A thick fringe of high, scattered, inclined steel girders stares at us. We break a path with an oxyacetylene torch. Already disarmed Dutch pioneers are present to clear mines. From the front section, they drag the defused plate mines through the tank obstacle. In front is a picture of destruction, a work which the Dutch themselves created with yesterday's evening explosions, supported by shells of our heavy weapons. The casemates are covered with rubble. The swing bridge over the dike is heavily damaged. Behind it we see the facilities of the fortress, toned with excellent camouflage color. We meet the casemate crew. They express no hate. In the calm faces of these men, who have fulfilled their soldierly, dutiful tasks, like we, there is no bitterness. They face their fate with quiet dignity. We are stunned. They greet us cordially. We do not look as if we were opponents 12 hours ago, who shot each other. All of us, victors and vanquished, feel that we had a tragic conflict. The war, which we fought, was not the result of inwardly felt enmity or strangeness. Our first meeting with the defeated opponent moves us. We recognize with a shudder that none of the cruelties was predetermined. The same blood need not attack its counterpart. The blind politicians in The Hague wanted this tragedy casually. We must admit that the Dutch population has accepted us with extraordinary speed. The Dutch fortress pioneers expressed their admiration openly. The German armed forces are chivalrous, says a bold casemate crew member in fluent German. Your fighter planes, your fighters and bombers, could have shot thousands of our soldiers on this dike to pieces. But they did not. We stand on a narrow canal. Wooden planks must be laid over it, so that our division can complete its march into the Fortress Holland as quickly as possible. The Dutch pioneers, directed by their officers, work hard to support our own efforts. In the first fortress, Structure the crew receives us with a friendly gesture. They offer us cigars. We accept them gratefully. A warm handshake demonstrates our respect for our opponent. We mention that we are thirsty. They offer us food, drink, and famous Dutch hospitality, with which we are already familiar. Yesterday, the half hour in the fortress, which we spent drinking with our opponent, will remain in memory. Several times it was assured to us that these men felt closer to us than to the English. An old soldier, an honorably grayed Dutch sergeant, suddenly discovers us among his men. "Oh," he says, "you Germans." He did not expect us here. The brave man shows no trace of suppression, although the hour must not be pleasant for him. The war is over for the Dutch. They breathe a sigh of relief. They feel that they all officers and crews are worthy of our admiration. When we go home, they ask us. Soon, we can say calmly, our Führer is generous. You will see. We see many signs of the significant hour. We speak of peace in this splendid land. The symbol of peace already flutters. A pair of doves has settled on the grass-covered concrete roof of a casemate and looks down on us. "Look up there," says someone. A pair of doves, doves of peace. Everyone looks up and laughs cheerfully. We gladly carry a letter of a Dutch artilleryman to his wife in Wukum. She will soon learn that her husband is safe. On the way, we meet a young Dutch sailor of the Dutch Navy. We cannot trust our eyes. He greets us stiffly with Heil Hitler. Early in the morning, our cavalry will begin its march over the dike to Province Holland. War Harbor Den Helder. May, 3 p.m. A provisional bridge was completed at Cornvorden, and in the evening of May 15th our pioneers had christened it General Major Felt. In the morning of May 16th we rode with our bicycle unit over the dike to the opposite side. We were to occupy the bridgehead at Den Diva. We follow the other division units. We are happy to ride past the fortress and highway to the distant coast. A 30-kilometer journey lies before us. The way into the Fortress Holland stands open. We meet refugees on bicycles and in cars, who happily return to their villages. They left their homes mostly in wild, irrational panic. Life becomes peaceful again. The collective sigh of relief after the capitulation is palpable. Den Diva is a mighty modern iron and concrete fortress of 13 units. We enter it from the right side of the road. Our cyclists have made themselves at home. Some are busy in front, collecting ammunition supplies from the Dutch crew. Shells for the coastal artillery are stacked near the tank obstacle. A white flag flutters above. Left of the road we encounter a fortification, whose crew has not been informed of the capitulation. They wait to be released. Has someone forgotten us? They ask concerned. They want to go home. Only home. They have had enough of the war, they assure us. They have lived partly in this bunker for over a year. The other Dutch fortress crews are released. Some stay to help our men. They are good fellows who have packed their bundles and suitcases. They drive home with buses or bicycles. At least so it appears. We do not have the impression that we have prisoners before us. The Dutch soldiers assure us that they have laid down their arms and do not feel like prisoners. Nowhere do we see a guard with fixed bayonet supervising them. The officers may keep their weapons. We salute them, a chivalrous meeting in every respect. A commando unit of the cavalry has occupied Den Helder, a war harbor on the north coast of Province Holland. Before entering the town, we cast a glance at the military airfield. Squadron Schumacher has inflicted considerable damage on the aircraft, Most are destroyed with incendiary bombs. Former Dutch naval work crews are on the runway with tractors, loading and transporting aircraft debris. They fill and level the 100-meter-long ditches, which the Dutch commander dug, to prevent German landings. A unit of the Naval Coastal Police has arrived in Den Helder. They are to take over the military harbor, fortress, and ships. A white flag waves on the highest crane. The German lieutenant captain negotiates the capitulation with the Admiralty. We stroll to Harson's fortress. Under flat tank turrets, the tubes of the coastal artillery are aimed at the North Sea. A mine layer lies at anchor. The crew clears the ship. The Dutch sailors step to their last roll call on the pier. Some have embraced their girlfriends. They make no secret of their happiness. The war for Holland is over. This obscurity endures, unwhispered, for peril's sake. Experientially, artillery CP evaporated. Superior spectral. Sundry Teutons quested honorable thraldom. Scattered phalanxes yielding to stars and stripes, bartering rifles for bread in olive groves dappled hush. By autumn 44, war's ledger soured palpably for the fatherland. Yet Morgenthau's blueprint, that treasury savant's agrarian sentence for Germania, fomented defiance. Doomed regardless, fight. Henry Morgenthau Jr.'s pastoral purgatory, envisioning plowshares o'er panzers, proved Goebbels' guilt, prolonging agony moons, galvanizing the Volksvice. Allied mantra, unconditional abdication, eroded capitulatory zeal, save Italy's duo, who craved concessions safeguarding legions' lives, chattels, dignities. Myriad Reich hierarchs hankered equitable truce, bar Führer's thrall. Air Captivities Chronicle, Addenda on Italia's Triennium, Thrice Annum Combat, Biennium Thraldom, Quinquennium Totality. Italian Krieg epitomized refinement, belligerence compact. Ulieve's truce, rifles mute amid midnight masses. Britannia's tea, ritual sacrosanct. Our barrages abeyant, lest porcelain shatter mid crumpets. Reciprocal chivalry of fragile packs in the maelstrom. Ample provender,